Tim Kennedy, who was a guest of mine recently, a friend of mine, said something very profound. He said, hard times make tough men, easy times make weak men.
Yeah.
But hard men make easy times.
Ah.
You know?
Nice.
And you think about it that way.
Yeah.
Hard times make tough men make easy times make weak men.
Yeah.
It's like a fucking gross cycle.
I know. Right,
I mean, when
exactly.
people are always like, kids today, these kids today don't know. Well, it's because they haven't gone through anything.
No, you can't manufacture that for them. My grandmother, this is a funny story, on 9/11, I was in New York. I was at Newark. You don't hear that a lot, by the way. This is a funny story. 9/11, but I was at Newark. I was flying out that day, and we watched the second plane fly into the...
You saw it?
The second one.
You saw it?
Saw it.
On television or in real
No.
life?
You know, at Newark, you look right across at...
You were looking and you actually
literally
saw the plane
across,
hit.
100%. I was...
God.
The first plane had hit...
What the fuck was going through your mind when you saw it hit?
Well, the first one hit before I got there, and I walked with a pilot down, like, through the airport, and he said, "Yeah, I think it was a Cessna." You know, it was kind of crazy. And so I'm down there, and I was at the desk, and I said I was going to Chicago, and I said to the woman working the thing, I said, "Do you think we're going to fly out today? You know, do you think we're going to actually get out?" And a guy yells, "Here comes another one!" This man, just like a businessman, and we all turn, and you could just see it streaking across right into the, you know, small. The plane looked small, but you saw, insane. So I sit down. I just sat. And I was sitting with an artist, a middle-aged man who was an artist, and then we heard about the Pentagon as we were sitting there, and he opened up his little art case, and it had all these razors in it, like razor blades and stuff from his artwork, like how, you know, he's a commercial artist. And he's like, "This has all got to change." He said, "You know, people are they let me on the plane with this." And we're just sitting there, like, just freaked out, like calm, but freaked out. And I was calling my wife, who was in New York, and I woke her up, and we were trying to, you know, talk, and she was going to the thing. And at one point, the artist I was sitting with just looked at me, like, in my eyes, like we were trying to understand what was happening. He said, "I think we should go home now." I was like, yeah, right, of course we should, after sitting there for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I can't get back into New York. I can't get back into the city. Time's gone by, and I'm in a cab going up the Parkway in New Jersey, and there's just dust where the towers were. And I'm like, holy shit. So I can't get in, so I go to my Nana's house, who lives by Giant Stadium, and because she's the closest to the city. I can't get into the city, so this driver takes us over. And I get to my Nana's house, and she's so excited to see me because her grandson's visiting. And she lives alone now. My grandfather had passed. And I'm sitting in front of the TV, and I'm like, "Nana," like, at first I hugged her, and I was like all weepy, like I was shaking, you know, I didn't know what was happening. And she's like, "Oh, it's so nice to see you. Get in here. I was on a visit. This is so great." And I'm like, "Do you see what's happening?" She's like, "Oh, I know. It's a crazy world." And I sit in her little tiny living room den area, and we have the TV on, and she's trying to talk to me, and I'm trying to watch the television, and this is the World War II mentality. I'm like, "Yeah, Nana," I'm kind of avoiding talking to her. And she goes, "All right, well, look, I have a bridge game, a card game with my lady friends. Here, take half of my sandwich." She opened her tinfoil, gave me half of her tuna fish sandwich. She goes, "You eat this. I'm going to go play cards with my friends, and we'll have dinner after. You'll be okay." And she walks out.
Wow.
But they were tough. They dealt with so much. I hadn't dealt with anything.
She wasn't even freaking out?
Not even freaking out. She's like, "It's a crazy world." And she wasn't like, you know, Alzheimer-y. She was just, hey, you know, shit happens. Yeah.
We lost a couple of buildings and a few thousand people.
Yeah.
Here's half a sandwich. I'm going to go play bridge.
I'm going to play bridge. We got to keep moving.
Wow.
Tomorrow's another day. But that's how they lived. Both my grandmothers are that way. Just completely like, plow ahead, plow ahead. Don't get caught up thinking about everything that's happening. There's no sense in it. We've done that before.
Yeah.
And you get nowhere. So let's just keep going this way.
Well, having a war that affected people the way World War II did, where the entire not just the entire nation was involved, but the whole world was involved in this conflict to stop evil.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
You had an evildoer.
Yeah, you had a real. I mean, obviously, ISIS is evil. Obviously, North Korea. There's a lot of evil in the world.
Yeah.
But it's not like this evil empire that's invading Europe and dropping bombs on people. It's not the same. It's not these Nazis that believe in eugenics and want to create an Aryan race, and like that was
putting
terrifying.
people in camps and not stopping, spreading, telling people we're coming.
And they were the most sophisticated in terms of engineering and like I mean they have, to this day. I mean, where do you get all the fucking engineers in terms of like automobiles, top end, like Audi, BMW? Those people were making shit for Nazis back then.
Yeah.
I mean,
they were co-opted by the regime.
Did you ever see like one of Hitler's cars? There's a Audi from like 1930 something that was made for Hitler. Yeah, it's like they were designing engines for planes, and they were super sophisticated,
super advanced. No, and you had this real evil focus. Like it was like, okay, the world has got to come and go get this one guy. It seemed, I don't know, I mean, I wasn't there, but it seems more black and white than the way the world is now.
For sure. I mean, there was a thing called Operation Paperclip that happened where after the war, we scooped up all these Nazi scientists secretly. And some of them were like like Werner von Braun, the guy who was in charge of NASA. He was a Nazi.
Really?
100%. The Simon Wiesenthal Center said that if he was alive today, they would prosecute him for crimes against humanity.
And he was the head of NASA?
He was the head of NASA.
Jeez.
Yeah, they took monsters.
Wow.
And they brought those monsters over here, and those monsters helped us make the Apollo rockets.
Jeez.
Yeah, and then some of the monsters went to Soviet Union. They took some of those monsters.
God.
Those were, I mean, and there's no reason to whitewash that either. Those were real monsters.
They were real.
Like they hung the 5 slowest Jews every day in front of the rocket factory in Berlin, where Werner von Braun was making rockets for the Nazis.
Oh my God.
Yeah. They had these Jews that were slaves that worked as I mean, there's people that were alive today that have those tattoos in their arms that talked about meeting him there and seeing him there. And they would hang the slowest workers.
Oh my God.
Yeah, in the front of the factory.
And this guy just keeps going to work. Doesn't split. Doesn't leave the country.
What could you do? And then
try to get out.
In Nazi Germany?
Yeah, you know.
How the fuck could you get out? You were a slave.
No, not the Jews.
What are you talking about?
The guys who were working, who were working for the company. Like to see the people being hung and still hang in there.
They were Nazis.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a Nazi.
They were all in.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not he agreed with the ideology wholeheartedly, I mean, I didn't have a conversation with him. I don't know if he was doing it for pragmatic purposes.
If he was frightened or whatever.
Yeah, but
get a disguise. Get out of there.
I don't think they could.
You know, one of those glasses with the mustaches.
Does that work?
Yeah, you go to the airport, you get on a flight, come to the US. You take it off, they're like, oh, it's the NASA guy.
Well, there's like
the rocket man.
There was a slow slide, I'm sure, into that. I mean, the slide, well, it wasn't that slow, but from World War I to World War II, as it escalated, I think it just got to this point where they're like, oh my God, like what are we doing? When they started having these concentration camps and killing all these Jews.
God, it's terrifying.
Yeah, and we took a lot of those guys, brought them over here. They worked for the U.S. government.